I've been dreaming of a tower, one so large that it reaches up and pierces the sky. So wide, it's hard to comprehend. A mass on every horizon. A thing wrought of metal and stone, with latticework quarried scars, webbing across the earth. A thing without purpose. Up and up it reaches, near scraping the moon. Overgrown, ancient and new. Year by year it rises, a little taller, a little wider, like a tumor on the earth itself. Hi everyone, and welcome back. My name is Aika, and this is Folly, the series where I develop my own dark fantasy manga from scratch, as a pretty mediocre artist. You're probably wondering what the premise is. Loosely, the subject is going to be an exploration of a megastructure. I know a few bits of media have already done this, such as Studio Video Cult's Rainworld is one such example that springs to mind, exploring a sprawling mechanical tower of a bygone era. SIU's Tower of God. This one is perhaps a bit more metaphorical in how it presents itself. It's not really a structure, rather a collection of environments. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Nihi Tsutsome, forgive the pronunciation. His work is what first made me start down the path of realizing you could combine the medium of manga and architecture to produce something truly special. If you're here, you may already know him from his most famous work, and, funnily enough, PewDiePie's favourite manga, Blame. If not, stop what you're doing and go read it. It is one of the most insane works of fiction out there. It was the first time I'd seen environmental storytelling expressed at such a level. Of course, as I expand my knowledge base, I come to realise that there's more and more artists capable of such comprehensive world building. H.R. Giger springs to mind for his work, which went on to inform the aesthetic of the first and subsequent Alien films, or the French comic artist Jean Girard, aka Mobius, whose work has received wide acclaim, not just as a comic illustrator, but as an artist as well. Studio Ghibli's Hayao Miyazaki, whose worlds and style has had an unmistakable impact on so many new artists. I know for me, his films were probably the first time I had a feeling and appreciation for the concept of art itself. I still remember watching Spirited Away as a 7-year-old, finishing it and promptly restarting it to watch it again. What these artists have in common is that they're all masters of environmental storytelling. However, I don't think anyone has done it over quite so long a format as Nihi with Blame, not with environmental storytelling as the focus. Or if they have, I'm unaware of it. His work is so little dialogue, rather the panels and environment themselves seem to have a weight to them. They express a narrative all on their own. In Blame, the world has changed, and it is not for those of flesh. The scale is not made for humans. Perhaps that's reflective of his own life experience. After all, our built environment is so heavily removed from what we have evolved for, and in a lot of cases, that trend just seems to be continuing. There's something about the idea of ascending a tower, to climb to great heights in fiction that seems so in line with the human experience. The trials and people you encounter as you ascend, the risk of slipping and falling, ever present. The possibility that you might fail and have to try all over again. And then maybe again, and maybe again, until the stairs are too steep, your legs are too heavy, and your fire too dim. Now, for those who haven't guessed it yet, I'm currently working in the architectural industry. I mentioned how I've not really found it as fulfilling as I'd hoped, and I think there's a few reasons for this. It could just be the very early stages of entering the workforce. Maybe it's just too different from what I expected and experienced in university. or that regulations and council bodies have made it so hard to actually achieve or build anything compared to how it used to be that it just kind of feels doomed to an extent. Or maybe it's just that I'm working full time and can barely afford to support myself. Admittedly, I did make the decision to move to one of the most expensive cities in the world, so that might be a little bit more on me, I will not lie. Who knows? Perhaps I'm just being a bit of a Debbie Downer. Funnily enough though, I still love the theoretical side of architecture. And as much as I like to rag on my time in university, the more I look back on it, the more I'm starting to see the value of education. I actually did pretty well in uni. No surprise to my mum, of course. And this is even though I wasn't the best student. I found it hard to focus on the majority of my lectures, to the point where often I would just skip them entirely to focus on project work. I still managed to mostly get good grades, largely because of how project work was actually weighted, and that it thankfully heavily outweighed all the other courses. And for the technical side of things, I definitely had a knack for a lot of those different aspects. And I would work hard on what I found engaging, often losing myself to a bit of a flow state. And I even managed to be a finalist for multiple competitions, national and international. Admittedly, in that instance, I think a lot of that was just because I was willing to put myself out there, even when I didn't think I would win. There were folks out there who I would have rated at a higher skill level or put in more work compared to me, but who knows, I could just be getting in my own head. Clearly, it's a place I spend a lot of time. Maybe too much time. That's not to say I didn't shit the bed every now and again. I had 2 classes in 2 separate years that almost caused me to fail. That year, each time, with the same professor. There was no personal vendetta against me or anything. I just don't think he was well suited to teaching, and to be fair to him, I was not well suited to being taught. At least, not what he was preaching. Or sometimes I would just find myself completely breaking the brief, or going off on a tangent of my own. I still remember that I was tasked to design a library and somehow managed to find myself developing a parametric water wheel, and had to scramble together the final bits of a design in the last week just to support it. The professor and tutor clearly knew what happened, and thankfully they were kind enough to still pass me with some light fun at my expense. But the way I saw it, it was the only opportunity to really do these kinds of things, to just wholeheartedly pursue what interested me. So I just wanted to have fun with it until I graduated. I guess putting off facing the real world in a sense. Which is a good point to circle back to the development of the story. We still face the problem of me not knowing how to do backgrounds. I mentioned before that I had an idea on how to further develop this, and the way I see it, I should make use of those 5 years of study somehow. So, let's talk about 3D modelling. It's such a powerful and useful architectural tool. The advantages of scale manipulation, setting scenes, and overall just making perspective drawing easier are impossible to ignore. I'm still working on my life and perspective drawings, in the real world, as it were. I've been reading up and definitely finding my skills are developing more than I thought possible in a far quicker time frame. But again, it's still that same theme of if there's an easier way that still lets you keep creative control, or if it's something that you make and develop yourself, then I don't really have any problem with checking it out. Plus it might be useful in terms of just further developing my skills in a way that I never thought of before. And thankfully I already have a strong base in 3D modeling software. I'm pretty good with both SketchUp and Rhino. Unfortunately, these aren't cheap anymore, especially not Rhino, and I don't particularly feel like paying a subscription fee. So, ever the budgeteer, yeah, it's a real word, don't look it up, I needed a good alternative. I started looking into Blender. I've never used it before, but I imagine it shares a lot of the basic fundamentals of digital modeling that I've picked up over the years of using other software. Beginning the modeling, I found it pretty straightforward. I didn't really feel the need to develop the mass too much, since I felt that would take out a lot of the fun of it for me. From there, it was as simple as taking it back into the drawing software and adding detail. At this point, I decided to bite the bullet and purchase Leonardo. It's a buy once model, so I figure, why not? I'm using it, it's good, it works. Unfortunately, right after this, my pen stopped working, so I spent all day trying to figure that out. For whatever reason, it just started to work the next day, which I guess is somehow just how these things go. When exploring backgrounds further, I found that my new techniques work to an extent for foreground and midground structures, but I don't think it really translated large/mega structures well in the background. I think this is an issue of too much detail at scale, and me needing to develop a better understanding of depth of field. Representing large forms is still quite challenging, but again, it's probably just another case of learning by doing. Setting the screen size was also really helpful. It kind of just lets you keep the entirety of the image in focus. So maybe I have to recant my prior statement on infinite scroll. But you know what? Options are nice. I began by making up some simple test sketches. A couple of them I thought were a bit too close to existing images that I'd referenced from Pinterest a few months ago, so I wanted to try something new. I wanted to try and write the scene first, and then translate it into art to see if that would better refine my design process while still channeling what I wanted to say. From there, I took that same drawing and explored it further by analysing it from different views and different angles in multiple panels. I often find the more time and energy you put into exploring an idea, the more of itself it will reveal to you. They almost have this predetermined form, and you're just trying your best to interpret it as it comes through in your own design language. I managed to get some promising results with this, I think. But eventually, I got to a pause point where I felt that pursuing it anymore would be detrimental to my pursuing of the project itself. I realized it was now time to begin the manga. A fool and a folly. A match made somewhere, I suppose.